Hi, Chris here from the Engraver Studio, and I'm going to introduce to you a new tool. It's the Orbital Ring Fixture, and although not a new concept by any means, these kind of devices have been used for many different things. It's a positioner that makes things much easier when you work under a microscope, and when you need to hold something at a really difficult angle for working, especially today. We're doing a lot of jewelry where stones and engraving are added to the sides of rings, and holding things straight up isn't always the answer. Sometimes it has to be at just a little bit of an angle or more, or even more, or all the way down. With this, of course, you can rest it on the ridge here. That gives you about a 45-degree angle, and then anywhere in between, and it can be locked in place and held at that angle depending on what you need to do. So the system comes with 4 collets, and they're made from solid brass. They're expandable with the dual cones that are built into this, and they are in 3 sections and held by these O-rings. The nice thing about this is that the brass is a much heavier, denser material than aluminum or a lot of the plastic collets that are on the market. And I'm always trying to battle against vibration, because it really makes a difference when you're engraving and hammering, doing any kind of stone setting or engraving, and that involves a lot of hammering. What happens is the vibration doesn't allow your tools to do the work they need to. So we try to eliminate as much of that as possible. The fixture's made from 303 stainless steel, and with the brass collets, as I've said, and then the handle that has a turned knurled brass grip on it. And that's really not just for aesthetics, but it really needs to be there in order to use this, and I'll be showing you that shortly. So the one thing that I wanted to make sure when I finished with this tool is that you could use it with any vise that's out there. The small micro vise, the larger vices, it doesn't matter whose it is. And then the other thing I wanted to make sure was that you could use it without a vise. So, because not everyone may have a vise. And so I've got a hole tapped and threaded on the bottom here so that you could hook it to about anything, even a steel block or something heavy, for some weight. And also you're going to notice that there's a relief in here and some relief cuts here. And that actually is to make sure that with the micro vise, which a lot of people are using today, the one issue that it does have is that the center yoke sticks up above the flat surface here by just a little bit. And what happens is you can't get your fixture to lay flat on there. So I wanted to make sure that that could happen. Plus, if you want to keep your ring centered in the center of the vise like this, you'll be able to do that, because when you slide it back, that center where it's raised up won't interfere. So you can keep it flat and then tighten your jaws down and keep the thing from moving or rocking on you. That's the other reason for the elongated base, is so that you can do that, slide it back and forth. And that goes for any kind of a vise that might have that kind of a situation too. All right, so let me give you a little bit of a overview of how this thing works. Basically, everything moves. The collar moves, and the base, the tightening base, moves as well, or the tightening ring, I should say. The handle can come out completely if you don't want it there once you get things set, if it's in your way. But it's also makes it nice so that you can quickly tighten, as you can see, trying to move the ball. It won't go anywhere. Or holding it and loosening it so you can move it around. Now, the one thing that I wanted to make sure that happened as well is that let's say, for example, you're working on this ring and you have it in a certain position, but you want to be able to move it around like this while you're working. Well, the problem is if you tighten it this way, you can't move it at all. Okay, let me tighten the collet on this all the way. Okay, so now you can't move it at all. So what will happen is if you take now the lever and you loosen it, then you can of course rotate this at the same time, but as you can see, everything moves. So the way this works is once you have it loosened like this so that this can still be moved around, articulated as you work, then you'll go ahead and tighten in the set screw, and when you tighten that, that will hold everything together here, but still let you move this. And you can either make it really tight by tightening it a little bit in the tightening direction, and now it's even tighter as you start to move it around, or if you want it to move more freely, then you loosen it, tighten it here, and it moves quite freely. Then when you want things tight, let's say for example you wanted something between the 90 degree and the, say, the 45, or even straight up like that, you find your position and pull the lever and tighten it, and it won't move. Now, to make sure that, you know, if you hit it hard enough, you could theoretically move things. Then if you want to make sure it's really not going to move, then you can also turn the handle in, tighten that down. It has a nylon tip, so you're not going to hurt any of the threads or anything. And that'll really hold it secure. Okay, so when you tighten that down, you can hear it's nice and solid while you're working on it. Then always remember to loosen that. When you have that tightened down, make sure you loosen it back a little bit before you come back in and loosen the tightening nut. So you can have it in the 90 degree position and still rotate it if you want. You can have it in any position and still rotate it. That comes in real handy with the microscope. For example, I've been working on some rings that have pave on the sides and what have you. So what I will do then is bring it up into this position, but I still want to be able to articulate it. So when I bring the microscope in and I'm working on it, I can hold it, and it's still nice and firm here, but I can hold it and rotate it and work on the different parts of the ring as I go. The one thing you have to try to remember is that it's not necessary to move the vise around. So oftentimes I'll put this in a bigger, heavier vise so that I don't do that. That's one of the things that you have to learn not to do, is to use the vise for positioning, because this will do it. So that's why it's not necessary to even have a vise for that. Okay, now for the collets. The collet system is nice because it basically has only 4 collets, and the way this works is the cones are designed so that the collets can only expand 2 sizes each. So the first collet is from size 4 to 6, the next from 6 till 8, from 8 till 10, and 10 till 12. And it'll work on all those, any sizes in between, and it won't allow you, even though they would expand more, it won't allow you to go over 2 sizes. So you don't have to sit there and dig around for just the exact size collet, which is always something that people are kind of complaining about. And they hold really well without a lot of pressure. That's the other thing that I like. They just pull up. And by having them this way, you know, not every ring is round, perfectly round inside. So if you have something that's a little askew or off, you know, one of the sides, one of the sections can pull out further if it needs to, or stay in, and it just helps to really hold it well. You'll see that the cone is flush, so that if you want to work on the end of a ring, it's not sticking up here and getting in your way. You'll be able to find some other uses. Now, anything that you can use to hold something on here, this is a 1032 screw, standard size screw that you can get anywhere. So anything that has that can be put in here. So you could actually then take this part, and for example, I've done this before, this is a just a chuck from one of the handles. And you can take this, cut this off, and drill in through here and put a screw through there, 1032, and you could screw that in place and use that for holding earrings and different things. You can make any kind of a little fixture as long as you can use that screw. Now here's a collet that I've made for doing my watches, and this collet, of course, is using a 1032 screw, so I can put this on here, tighten this down, and now I have a nice way to work on the watch because of this domed area like that. Makes it really nice to access it. Okay, if you were setting stones, it would be great, because especially if you were doing a pave or something all the way around or in different places, you could hold it at the position that you needed it in, tighten it, and again, especially with the microscope. So if you make it loose on your collet, which I do this often times, you can actually rotate it by just holding it with the pressure here and cut and do things like that as well. Or go ahead and tighten up your collet, you know, fully tight, and then let the ball spin a little bit instead. That works just as well. So then you'd have to come in, and if you tighten your collet onto the ring, bring this back like before, and then now you have some tension, you see, so it doesn't move too easily. But I can also rotate it this way, okay, which is rotating the ball as well. So anything that you can think of that might help you, you know, you can attach to this. Now, one other thing I want to point out is I've used this again for doing waxes and stuff. These collets hold very well on something like fragile like wax, because you can put just a little bit of pressure and not break them. The other thing is using this thing in the laser welder. Oftentimes when you're welding, you've got to keep that thing, you know, in focus and keep it moving, especially on different kinds of rings and stuff. So once you have things in the collet, then you can hang on to this thing and keep things really steady while you're working with your, you know, your laser wire and coming in and welding things and move it nice and evenly and be able to move it around without having to hold it in your fingers. So that's something else that I've been using this for as well. So that's basically an overview, and the main thing is showing you how the locking system works with the handle, because it's something that can be a little bit difficult to understand, so it's easier just to point it out. Okay, well, thanks for watching.